In the heartwarming embrace of the African landscape lies Damaru, a small yet vibrant village where the sun painted golden hues on thatched roofs, and the air was rich with the scent of burning firewood, the distant sound of drum beats blooming, and the blooming of the ube trees, a testament to the village's rich cultural heritage. In this village lives a beautiful young girl named Laila. Her skin was the color of the rich African soil, and her eyes sparkled with the same intensity as the stars that graced the village's night sky. Layla's laughter was infectious, a melody that resonated with the elegance of her mother, Temi. Temi, whose name means mine is worthy of thanks, is a skilled weaver who had always adorned herself in traditional attires, her headgear always perfectly tied, symbolizing her unyielding resolve. Tammy's life was a tapestry of joy and hardship, but her greatest ambition was not for herself, but for her beloved daughter. In Damaru, educating a girl was a privilege that only a few could afford. It was a world where sons were often seen as the carriers of legacies and daughters, the keepers of homes. Tammy, however, dared to dream differently. She envisioned Lila not just within the confines of their homestead, but beyond, in realms where her intellect and spirit could soar. Temmie's earnings were meager, barely enough to cover the essentials. Every coin spent on Lila's education was a sacrifice, a choice between the immediate needs of survival and the distant dreams of prosperity. Lila's journey to school was a daily testament to her determination. The school became her haven, despite the ragged uniforms and the absence of luxurious learning materials. Layla's mind was a fertile ground, blooming with knowledge and ideas. Her intelligence is as the edge of a blacksmith's blade. Layla studies by the dim light of a kerosene lamp, her fingers stained with the ink of her dedication. However, tragedy struck when Temi, the vibrant soul and the unwavering pillar behind Layla's educational aspirations, succumbed to a sudden illness and died. Her demise left a void not only in Lila's heart, but also in the progressive spirit of the village. Lila's home, once a haven of warmth and laughter, turned into a place of sorrow and desolation. Her stepmother, Zara, embodied the stark contrast to her late mother. With her furrowed brows and sharp tongue, carried the bitterness of unfulfilled dreams and a deep-seated adherence to traditional norms. She viewed Layla's education as an unnecessary luxury, a sentiment echoed by many in a village where girls were predestined for marriage and motherhood. Layla's father, Kofi, a tall, sinewy man with a gentle demeanor, found himself lost in the depths of grief. His once bright eyes, which mirrored the courage and love of his late wife, grew dim with sorrow. The sight of Layla, so strikingly reminiscent of Temi, became a source of unending pain for him. Drowning in his anguish, Kofi's resolve to continue Layla's education waned, succumbing to the pressures of tradition and Zara's persistent disdain. The village square, where elders narrated tales under the ube trees and children played in the glow of the sunset, became a place of silent whispers about Lila's future. Amidst this turmoil, Kofi made a heart-wrenching decision. He resolved to marry Lila off to Chief Chike, the wealthiest man in the village. Chief Chike, a robust man with a commanding presence, was revered and feared in equal measure. His fame spreads across villages to cities and was given several nicknames, including the husband of a legion women, because he is a man of many wives who has suffered a fate that Layla is about to face. He had his eye on Layla, not for her intellect or dreams, but for her beauty and the lineage she represented. Even before the death of Temi, Layla's mother, Chief Chike, had come bearing gifts to marry her, but Temi turned him down angrily and clearly stated her intentions for Layla, especially that the chief is a man thrice her age, and most of his wives haven't been seen since he married them. Rumor has it that he takes them to different villages and cities to control his resources there. A few Damaru villagers, however, believe that he's a bad omen for separating innocent girls from their home. Now, Layla's fate is about to take a turn, shattering the dreams she and her mother had lovingly nurtured. The prospect of marriage to the chief filled her with a deep sense of despair. It was a union that promised prestige and security for her family, but at the cost of her freedom and the future she yearned for. In the nights that followed, Laila would sit under the moonlight, gazing at the stars that dotted the vast African sky, reminiscing about her mother's tales of empowered women and distant lands where girls could dream without bounds. Each star seemed to whisper a piece of her shattered dreams, a reminder of a path that was now being forcefully steered away from her reach. On a sunny afternoon, when the sun was high over the village, a stranger made a grand entrance into the village and introduced himself as Mr. Okafor, an educationist and a fighter for quality education for girls. Draped in a finely woven traditional cloth that glistened with intricate embroidery, he carried himself with an air of authority that demanded attention. His smile, warm and disarming, concealed his true nature. He came bearing promises of his influence overseas and of a better future for Damaru village. He spoke eloquently about the importance of education, especially for young girls, and with his honeyed words, painted vivid pictures of the opportunities that awaited these girls in the city. He talked of his partnership with prestigious schools that offer scholarships and careers that would lift their families out of poverty. Mothers and fathers gathered around, their faces lit with hope, hanging on to every word he said. But behind this facade, Mr. Okafor harbored a dark secret that is yet to be unfolded. King Diallo, a robust man with a commanding presence, watched Mr. Okafor's performance with a furrowed brow. His deep-set eyes, accustomed to reading people, sensed a disquieting undercurrent beneath Mr. Okafor's smooth demeanor. The king, adorned in his kingly traditional attire, represented the village's strength and wisdom. However, the allure of Mr. Okafor's promises for the village left him torn. His silence was not of ignorance, but of a deep internal conflict between his intuition and the desperate needs of his people. Every night, the village square, usually alive with communal laughter and storytelling, was abuzz with debates over Mr. Okafor's offer. Elders sipped palm wine under the ube tree, discussing the implications of sending their daughters away. Mothers, with babies strapped to their backs, shared anxious glances, torn between protecting their daughters and wanting to give them a chance at a better life. Mr. Okafor, seizing the moment, continued to weave his web of deceit under the moonlit sky. King Diallo, sitting in his palace, a simple yet dignified structure adorned with symbols of African heritage, wrestled with his decision. The weight of his ancestors' teachings to protect and uplift his people lay heavy on his shoulders. His heart ached with worry for the innocent lives at stake, yet the glimmer of hope for his village's advancement was hard to dismiss. In the solitude of his chamber, he pondered, unaware of the tragic events his hesitation would soon set in motion. He decided to make connections with his old friends in the city to confirm Mr. Okafor's claims, but it was a matter of quick decision. Mr. Okafor noticed his dedication to investigate the masquerade opportunity, looming at the village, and set out to leave with the girls earlier than planned, sowing a seed of urgency in the hearts of parents. Surprisingly, parents were lining up to send their daughters and sons to what they believed was a new beginning in the city. The air was thick with a mix of excitement and naive hope. Further information was, however, kept away from the king. In the midst of this, Laila, a bright-eyed girl, found herself trapped in the web of her family's expectations. Her father, Kofi, a man whose once kind eyes had grown weary with life's hardships, and her stepmother, Zara, a woman with a sharp tongue and calculating gaze, were determined to marry her off to Chief Cheek, the wealthiest in the village. Laila was confined to a small room. The room, with its walls echoing the vibrant colors of the earth and a single kerosene lamp flickering in the corner, became her temporary prison. Meanwhile, Zara, with her own daughter's future in mind, to marrying her off to the chief and zeal to quickly get rid of Layla, hatched a deceitful plan. Under the guise of night, she whispered to Layla of a fabricated opportunity for freedom. Go, fulfill your dreams, follow the stranger, and make your mother happy. Her eyes glinting with hidden motives, Layla, desperate and hopeful, saw this as her only chance. With her heart pounding against the fabric of her brightly patterned jewel, she stepped out into the cool night. The village, usually alive with the rhythmic sounds of talking drums and the soft chatter of the evening market, was eerily quiet. Lila's footsteps were muffled by the red earth as she made her way to the outskirts where Mr. Okafor's bus was waiting. It was the night Mr. Okafor set out to leave the village before the king could do any harm to his intentions. As Layla boarded the bus, she glanced back one last time at the familiar sights of her village. She was shocked to discover the presence of Nia, the king's daughter. It's no doubt she desired quality education and a life different from what their village offered. Nia sat quietly in the back of the bus, her heart heavy with her own secret burdens. The bus trundled down the dusty road, leaving behind a trail of dust and the echoes of a life Lila once knew. As the village faded into the distance, so did the innocence of a girl caught in the crosshairs of tradition and the ruthless ambitions of those she called family. As the day breaks, the king discovered the truth, and that his only daughter also is gone with the stranger. The queen, Leah, a woman of elegance, who often adorned herself with colorful head wraps and intricately designed aso-ebi, had been unusually secretive in the days leading up to the departure. Leah, believing she had secured a golden opportunity for Nia, had covertly arranged for her daughter's inclusion in Mr. Okafor's group. Something about the situation didn't sit right with the king, and with a heart heavy with worry and a mind filled with foreboding, he set out in pursuit but soon realized with a sinking heart that he was too late. The news of Layla's disappearance also had spread like a wildfire, igniting a mixture of whispers and rumors. Kofi felt a tempest of emotions raging within him. His heart, once a reservoir of love for his daughter Laila, was now a whirlpool of confusion and anger. But now Zara, his second wife, stood before him, her eyes a well of deceit masked by crocodile tears. She spun her web of lies, presenting a self-inflicted wound on her arm, claiming that Laila, in a fit of rage, had attacked her and fled. Kofi, his mind clouded by the grief of losing his first love and now the alleged betrayal of his beloved daughter, found himself swaying under Zara's manipulative narrative. The air was thick with uncertainty, the village's usual vibrancy dampened by the heavy cloud of the unfolding drama. As night fell, the full moon rose above the village, casting its ethereal light over the thatched roofs and the winding paths. Kofi, torn between his love for Laila and the deceptive words of Zara, looked up at the night sky, seeking guidance from his ancestors. Little did he know that the truth would soon unravel, revealing the depth of the deception and changing the course of their lives forever. As the city's skyline came into view, with its towering buildings and the buzz of urban life, the girls pressed their faces against the bus windows, marveling at the sights. The city was a living, breathing entity, its streets pulsating with life, its air filled with a cacophony of sounds, car horns, distant music, and the murmur of countless voices. Laila, a girl with deep-set eyes that mirrored the wisdom of her late mother, Temi, and a resolve forged from years of hardship, gazed out the window in wonder. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of anticipation and apprehension. Nia, the chief's daughter, with her delicate features and an air of naivety, shielded by privilege, clung to the dream of a brighter future. As the bus weaved through the city, it was as if they were traveling through different worlds. Mr. Okafor, a man with a facade of benevolence masking his nefarious intent, herded the girls into an old sanctuary. They stayed in different rooms, with its two small beds and a single, flickering light bulb. Laila, whose aspirations were fueled by her mother's vision, spoke of her desire to become a lawyer, an advocate for those in need. As night fell, the city transformed. The skyline glittered like a constellation, each light a testament to the city's promise. The next morning, the girls woke up in a dark and thick air room, where a stranger, a gaunt figure with cold, calculating eyes, stood before them, explaining how they will be sold as slaves in the coming days. The cruel truth unraveled before them like a nightmare. They were not in the city for education, but were ensnared in a sinister web of human trafficking. The dreams that once filled their thought were replaced by the worry of being enslaved for the rest of their lives. The dark room, with its bare walls and the stale air, felt like a world away from the vibrant landscapes and the warm community they had left behind. Layla's looked around at the scared faces of her companions, including Nia, whose delicate features were now marred by the harsh reality of their situation. What awaits them? As days passed, Nia observed their captors' routines, looking for any opportunity to escape. She noticed that in the early hours of the morning, when the city was still asleep, their guards were less vigilant. Layla had also noticed a window, secured only by a rusty latch, which seemed overlooked by their captors. Night after night, under the guise of quiet conversations, she worked to loosen it, her fingers moving with the deftness of a weaver threading a loom, a skill taught her by her mother. The night they chose was moonless, the sky a tapestry of darkness, embroidered with stars. One by one, they slipped through the window, their movements as silent as the night breeze that rustled through the leaves of the nearby palm trees. Heartbeats racing, they silently made their way out of the old house covered with bushes into the unknown streets of the city. Their escape did not go unnoticed for long. As they navigated the labyrinth of the city, the traffickers, realizing their captives were gone, began a frantic search till day breaks. They finally caught a glimpse of the girls running and were almost catching up when Laila decided to distract them to buy the other girls time to escape. Driven by the fear of capture and the hope of freedom, the girls pushed on. Luckily, Laila's plan succeeded in distracting the traffickers, but it was a plan to sacrifice herself for the freedom of others. She was caught, but after realizing her escape plan for the stranger from the dark room hit her and she blacked out. On the other side, the other girls led by Nia, the king's daughter, journeyed along the busy streets into a crowded marketplace, where the blend of voices and the chaos of activity provided a temporary cover. There, Nia's memory flushed back to the one time she has visited the city with her parents before his father was crowned king. There was a promise made to her that they will all live and enjoy the city life. That was all before the kingship duty called. There she heard her name, Nia. Nia, is that you? She looked back to see the face of her mother's best friend, Auntie Ayo, who had moved to the city after marriage. She gladly hugs her with tears in her eyes. At Auntie Ayo's house, she listened to the girl's story with a growing sense of horror and immediately contacted the authorities. How fate has rescued them from a life of pain and shame, she said. As dawn broke over the city, the girls saw the first rays of sunlight as a symbol of new hope. The police arrived soon after, and the girls' story unfolded in the harsh light of day. The news of their escape and the exposure of the trafficking ring sent shockwaves through the city and back to their village. The village of Damaru, usually a cradle of peace and tradition, was now shrouded in a cloud of mixed emotions. The joy of the returning daughters was tinged with a palpable sense of loss. Layla, the brave heart who had risked her own freedom for the safety of others, was missing. Her father, Kofi, his face etched with lines of worry and regret, wept openly. The realization of Layla's selfless act and the depth of his own misjudgment weighed heavily on him. Zara, once driven by selfish motives, now sat in a corner, her eyes devoid of their usual cunning. Guilt gnawed at her as she grappled with the consequences of her deceit. The village, which had once buzzed with her manipulative whispers, now looked upon her with a mix of pity and disdain. Meanwhile, in the city, Lila lay in a dimly lit room, her body bruised but her spirit unbroken. Her captors, frustrated by the escape of the other girls, had left her in a state of unconsciousness. It was in these moments of solitude and pain that Layla's resilience shone brightest. Her thoughts wandered to her mother, Temi, whose teachings had always been a beacon of hope and strength. As fate would have it, a police raid, believed to have been tipped from Chief Cheek's allies, stormed the hideout. Layla, barely conscious, heard the sounds of liberation, the breaking down of doors, and the authoritative voices demanding justice. Back in Damaru, the news of Laila's rescue and the disbandment of the trafficking ring sparked an outpouring of emotions. The village square, once a place of quiet despair, erupted in cheers and ululations. Kofi, his heart now a tumult of relief and joy, prepared for his daughter's return. Layla's return to Damaru was nothing short of triumphant. She was greeted with songs, dances, and tears of joy. Her father, Kofi, enveloped her in a hug that spoke volumes of apology and love. The village elders, adorned in their finest asooki, gathered to honor Laila. The king led the ceremony, his words laden with respect and admiration for the young girl who had shown unparalleled bravery. When it was time for Laila to speak to the villagers in the presence of the king and Chief Chaike, the entitled hero of the village, she revealed a secret she has kept within herself, the true identity of Chief Cheek. She flashes back to her moments in the depths of human cruelty, almost giving up. She hears the voice of someone familiar saying, "How could this operation go wrong? You know, I was doing it on low key for over 10 years, but now the world knows what we are cooking because the house is raging with fire." It was then that Layla realized that it was the voice of the man she was supposed to be betrothed to, Chief Chaik. While this was a shocking truth, she pretended to be unconscious to avoid any suspicion. Chief Chaik then decided to make a future plan with the traffickers to release Layla and use the young traffickers as scapegoat for the police. Hence, the tip from his allies. The whole village gasped in surprise. Chief Chaik, once revered and feared, now stood exposed as the mastermind behind the nefarious trafficking ring. The revelation sent ripples of disbelief and anger through the crowd. The king, his face a mask of betrayal and fury, lunged at the chief, his actions mirroring the outrage of his people. It was then that the truth of the chief's wives who had disappeared became known. Zara, who had married off her daughter instead of Layla, fell on her knees, crying bitterly. What a twist of fate for the wicked stepmother. The chief, realizing that his dark deeds had finally caught up with him, attempted to flee, but was swiftly apprehended by the villagers. His wealth, accumulated through years of exploitation and cruelty, was seized and earmarked for the development of Damaru. In the aftermath of the revelation, Damaru underwent a profound transformation. The village, once under the shadow of Chief Chaik's tyranny, now basked in a new era of transparency and justice. The king, guided by the lessons of this ordeal, became a more compassionate and inclusive leader. Layla, hailed as the heroine of Damaru, became a symbol of courage and integrity. Her story inspired not only her village, but neighboring communities as well. A scholarship program for girls was to be founded in her name, but she decided to make it a memorial to her mother, Temi, who gave her the chance to dream. And soon, girls from Damaru village and beyond were able to pursue their education, free from the fear of exploitation. Laila often thought of her mother, Temi, whose dreams and teachings had ignited the spark of change in Damaru. She felt her mother's presence in every girl who picked up a book, in every classroom that echoed with the sound of learning, and in the hopeful eyes of the village's daughters. As time passed, Lila pursued her dream of becoming a lawyer. She became a beacon of hope and a testament to the power of resilience. Her journey, marked by trials and triumphs, became a source of inspiration for generations to come. Nia, once a sheltered daughter of the king, was able to leave the four corners of the village and now stood alongside Lila as a fierce advocate for women's rights and education. Their friendship, forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal, became a powerful force for positive change. In Damaru village, where the sun still painted golden hues on the mud brick houses and the ube trees continued to bloom, the story of a girl who dared to dream had become the story of a village reborn, a story that would be told for generations to come. Layla's journey, a tapestry of pain, courage, and triumph, had become the heartbeat of the village, pulsating with the rhythm of newfound freedom and endless possibilities. As our journey in Damaru comes to a close, and we witness the incredible paths Layla and Nia have forged, we hope you've been inspired by their stories of resilience, hope, and triumph. If you've enjoyed this tale and want to explore more stories that captivate the heart and ignite the spirit, we invite you to join our community by subscribing. Your subscription supports our work and ensures you never miss out on the amazing stories we have to share. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to sharing our next story with you.